Thank you to our sponsors for today's video, Eaton, Amber, InfyPower, and StarCharge. Eaton is a one-stop shop for implementing reliable and innovative EV charging infrastructure at your site. Across all applications, Eaton's EV charging infrastructure hardware and software gives you the scalability, flexibility, and intelligence you need to charge today and scale up tomorrow. Learn more at eaton.com/EVCI. Also, our sponsor, Amber, providing modern protection plans for your Tesla's battery and more, without the hassle of long-term contracts or upfront payments. Check out the link in the description to explore their plan options and use code SPEC5 for a 5% discount on all orders. And InfyPower is the largest EV charger module provider with over 3 million power modules running reliably worldwide. Their latest G2 collection features ultra-high power density and efficiency for EV charging and energy storage integration. InfyPower, innovation for your power. And StarCharge, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world, and is also a provider of residential and commercial battery storage with microgrid solutions. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video, and welcome to my friends Drew and Tijmen. And the three of us have an exciting announcement to make. And Drew, would you like to share what the big news of the day is?
We are once again the electric cannonball record holders.
That is correct. We have broken the electric cannonball, which is essentially the quickest travel time between a specific point in New York City and a specific point in the Los Angeles area. And the three of us have done it
Three times.
We have done it a few times. And we've done it in the new Porsche Taycan. And so we're going to talk about our experience driving this car from Seattle to Boston in the I-90 Surge, which Drew did.
Yep.
And then we will talk about our experience breaking the Cannonball record from New York to LA. So 2 cross-country trips back to back in this exact Taycan on different wheels, but we'll talk about that in this video. So join us for a little bit of a story podcast-ish conversation about all of the miles we've done in the new J12 Taycan. So Drew, I want to talk to you about driving this across the country in the I-90 Surge. But before we do that, let's talk about this exact Taycan.
Mm-hmm.
So Porsche sent us the new Taycan to basically do our thing with it, to run all the tests, the range tests, charging tests.
Yep.
And then I was like, do you mind if we drive it across the country? Twice.
A couple times. Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, sure, go right ahead. So it's been
amazing.
We put together a program really to try and rerun the Tesla Model S, Lucid Air, and Porsche Taycan race to Vegas that we did about a year ago at this point.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that is where we basically ran from here in Fort Collins, Colorado to Las Vegas and back, 2 different runs.
Mm-hmm.
And actually both times the Tesla Model S won.
Right.
And it was primarily down to the charging infrastructure at the time that did it. And, you know, a lot of people hear long distance road trip, they think what electric car is the most range? And so everyone kind of expected the Lucid to win the race to Vegas's. And that actually came last place, but only by a second or a half a second to the Taycan on the way back. So there's 2 strategies really when it comes to road tripping an electric car or building an electric car for road trips. The first is really the Lucid strategy. Relatively huge battery. I mean, 118 kilowatt hours in that case, not massive, but big. Yep. And a massive amount of range, but then kind of not great charging performance.
Yeah, so great efficiency, which is they're all in on efficiency. Yep, and that's important, but slower charging.
And then you have the Taycan approach, which is built for the overall fastest travel time. And we know the engineers pretty well for Taycan. We've all spoken to them, and this car is built for fast traveling. Mm-hmm. And what that means is, okay, it's built to be ripped at high speed, so built for Germany, which means there's a 2-speed transmission on the rear axle, which I still don't love. What's your opinion on that?
Don't love as well. Yeah, so what are you gaining? You're gaining that second speed ratio for better high speed, and then also I guess that 0 to 60 number coming down a few tenths. I would say skip it altogether. Just stick with that second speed ratio, and that's fine.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with this particular spec, which is big battery rear drive. Maybe if it was turbo GT and you really need to get the number, sure.
Sure.
But anyway, this car is built for fast traveling in the sense that it's not terribly inefficient. It's definitely nowhere near as efficient as the Lucid.
Yep.
And they're, similar sized cars and everything. So Lucid does have some magical efficiency. But the biggest thing here is a little bit smaller battery, but with massive charging performance.
Exactly.
And so, this particular specification of the car is the large battery. They call it Performance Battery Plus, about 97 kilowatt hours usable, 105 gross. So it has a pretty big buffer. And it uses a pouch cell, NMC 811 chemistry, but it is just thermally managed amazingly.
To perfection, yeah.
And it can do over 320 kilowatt peak charging. I think we've seen 327, 328 delivered.
Yep.
And then it doesn't come off 300 kilowatts, assuming the temperature's in the right range. We'll talk a lot about that nerd stuff here, until about 65%.
Exactly. Yep.
And so it's just, not only does it have the peak, it has that flat curve.
It's just incredible. The amount of, and obviously, viewers check out the 10% challenge where that was showcased on the Taycan. The amount of energy that it can onboard in a period of time is just crazy. It's just crazy.
So on a short to medium length road trip, we learned this during the I-90 surge for people who haven't watched that video. We'll talk a little bit more as well. But the Lucid is a faster road tripper for medium length road trips because it does have, if you're leaving at 100% state of charge, another 100 plus miles of range over this car.
Yep.
That gap actually shrinks as speed increases, because the Lucid is affected by external conditions. Its efficiency comes closer to this car. But if you keep the speeds down, then the Lucid will go, in our 70 mile per hour test, 510 miles on a charge. This did 368, I think, something like that.
Sounds right.
Yeah, so a big difference. But at higher speed, this car is less affected than the Lucid. So at 80 or 90, they actually get a bit closer.
And what is the deal with the Lucid again? Something with the rear drive unit not being able to kick off?
Correct.
At a certain speed?
So the Lucid uses 2 permanent magnet motors with no clutch disconnect. So below 83, 84 miles an hour, plus or minus, it's able to actually have no current sent to the motor, which is unusual for a permanent magnet motor. But at higher speed, then it's always engaged.
Right.
And that does hurt efficiency quite a bit. Other things, of course, aero, that's probably the biggest impact, is just, your efficiency losses are on a logarithmic curve. And, eventually you'll just reach a point where they're both burning a ton of juice.
Yep.
The big key advantage with the new generation Taycan compared to the old generation Taycan, there are many. There's a, entirely new electrical architecture in the sense that there is no 400 volt bus in this vehicle anymore. So in previous Taycan, it was a 400 volt AC compressor. Now it's just 12 volt or 800 volt. So it's been totally simplified, which is cool. Lots of other little things. But the biggest customer benefit, beyond the extra capacity and range and software improvements and things like that, is the crazy charging. So it's called J12 or PA, which is sort of their product update version. And you can tell because the car has a little bit different front end. It no longer has that teardrop shape coming down here and a little bit more sculpted aero wise. But overall, it's not a huge design update.
Yeah, overall, could almost, just not even tell the visual differences. Yeah, it's all underneath the skin.
And it's not like a light product update. It's new chassis settings, new everything, new battery. It's wild.
Absolutely, yeah. There was a lot of relearning from the old car to this car, kind of like it's just a entirely new vehicle.
Absolutely. So, okay, that's the new Taycan. This particular one that we had is spec to 125,000. So not cheap, but also you can go more than double that.
Sure. Right. Also, just the near the floor of Taycan, pricing wise.
Yeah, this was a relatively tame optioned vehicle.
Yeah.
And it was really spec'd to showcase the range, the charging, the distance.
Right.
And I think we were really lucky that Porsche leaves a set of aero wheels with us. And so we actually didn't run any of the driving on these 20-inch wheels. We're filming this a day before we give it back to Porsche, but we ran it on the 19-inch aero wheels and tires,
which are unbelievably not grippy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, yep. You could go, that's such a good example of, really good for the efficiency, but holy crap, I mean, like a little bit dangerous with like braking distances.
Lucid does it too.
They're 5 years old, also
Yeah.
those tires. So
Yeah, those tires were old.
yeah,
But Lucid does it too. You can get like, the thing with the Porsche is they let you spec it for what you're going to do with it. You can go full road trip mode, which is kind of what we had, or you can go Turbo GT Visoc with Porsche Active Ride and, manual charge port doors for extra, reduction of high pressure air in the wheel well. So you can really dial in this thing as you would expect from a Porsche.
yeah, just love what they do. Yeah, especially on the high end, it's just so cool, so cool.
Yep. Okay. So the i90 Surge, Drew, we got 10 cars together and we wanted to see what was the best electric road tripper. And what we decided was the winner of that challenge would be what the three of us, maybe, we had the idea, but we weren't totally sold. Maybe we would just try and see how quickly we could get New York to LA.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I was very much, I mean, for the majority of the time, going through doing the i90 Surge, I was actually saying, I was leaning towards not spending any more time in the Taycan than, just that 3,000 miles.
Yeah, you had already driven it across the country.
Right. So yeah, there was talk ahead of time, okay, who's going to go in what car and so on. And the i7, I think actually was my choice, knowing that, just the comfort aspect was going to become a major factor.
And it was great.
This is, yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself and the massaging seats.
Oh, yes.
But this was a little bit less comfortable than that.
So for the i90 Surge, what we were trying to do was to have at least one expert of the car in every team.
Right.
And I felt, okay, I know Taycan really well, the previous generation. I've driven the new generation in Germany, maybe about 7,000 miles, so I knew it well as well. And you and I have cannonballed the previous generation Taycan. We've driven them on other occasions as well. So I knew you knew the Taycan and the way to optimize the Taycan, which is to drive it hard, charge it fast, and get back on the road. And a lot of other electric cars that we used in the Surge don't really require that same level of precision.
Sure.
Some cars you can just get there at whatever, charge it to 80, and it's fine, like the Genesis G80 electric. That thing was just easy, kind of mindless driving.
Yep.
And here the Taycan really required some expert driving. So I thought, okay, maybe you and I would go in the Taycan for the Surge, but then everyone would give us crap for doing it again and going together. So I took the i7, which was kind of the worst one on paper, and by now the results are out, so we can say...
You took yourself out of the race.
Yeah, basically, I was there just trying to help everyone maximize all their cars.
Right.
And we put our buddy Shane, Alex, and my dad in the Lucid.
Yep.
And you, Sarah, and David in this car. And those teams I felt really were hardcore drivers, hardcore EV people, and were, that was our top A teams in both of the cars that mattered most, in my opinion.
Yep, makes sense. I mean, you would hate to have, some big variable in just driving the way that the cars were optimized for at least those top three that would have changed the results, and that would have been a shame. So yeah, I think those, well, we could talk about the how things transpired in the Lucid, but except for that, they were doing what they should.
Yeah, I mean, I think they optimized the Lucid as best as they could until they ran out of charge, which was the last charging stop. Right. And I think it was very clear that it wasn't going to win. Yeah. It was going to be beat by the Model 3, for sure, which is a big surprise for many of our viewers. I mean, actually, at the time of this recording, we haven't even posted the Surge yet, Drew. Okay. And everyone is predicting that Lucid won. I mean, a lot of people. Okay. So it's like the Taycan, most people aren't even thinking this car won. Wow. But, you and I, we're in the, we've seen the 10% challenge numbers. We know what this car can do. Yeah. That initial range only helps on leg number 1. Yep. Exactly. Once you exhaust your range, which they didn't actually go that much farther than everyone in the first leg. No, yeah, that was even a little shy of, what it maybe we would have thought. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think we were overestimating their capabilities and maybe underestimating the range on this one, which, by the way, just to mention range, I've done 465 miles on a single charge in the new Taycan.
Wow.
in a hypermile test.
Hypermiling.
Yep,
Yeah,
at about 50, 55.
Okay.
But you can do it.
Yeah. Holy smokes.
So the Lucid got about 400 miles of range on the first charge, from 100 to dead, based off their efficiency. Mm-hmm. And you were getting probably about 300. So it's still a big difference, but you went farther than you thought. They went less far than they thought.
Yep. Yeah, once we got into it, 240, I want to say, is the biggest we ever did. Somewhere around there, although it's been a little bit, so might be a little fuzzy on some of the details.
No, that was the Billings to Gillette stretch.
There we go.
Yep, yeah. That's a long one.
Yep.
So the surge, let's talk about your experience. You went with David and Sarah, you drove the car across. Of course, it's all filmed. What did you think of the car? Because you passed the Lucid pretty early on. Mm-hmm. You ended up in first place, kind of even in the first episode. Yep. And we just knew that this thing was just going to keep putting distance on hardcore. The only car you lost to in the surge was the gas car.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and not by that much, right? It was less than 2 hours, or right about 2 hours.
Yeah, so, they dilly-dallied a bit in the beginning, but still, then they got serious after we called and screamed at them.
Yeah. Yeah, we need a representative result, guys. And so, yeah, I mean, the first leg, that was, getting used to some things, although we started off probably a little bit more conservative. And so we were arriving, right around our 8% or so target. And that's what seemed to, keep, charging speeds as high as possible, and also not start to get things too hot. And so anyway, just getting into the groove, and things went well. We did, some leapfrogging with other cars at that time where, we'd pull off to charge, they'd pass, and so on and so forth. But then, once we got ahead, then we were just stretching it from that point on. Yeah,
so let's talk about the charging performance and what you experienced and how you were able to adjust some of those things. Mm-hmm. The Taycan has like this relatively large window of thermals that it can charge at maximum performance.
Right.
But once it reaches, and we've seen this in our Germany videos and others, once it reaches its maximum temperature around 55, 56 degrees Celsius, then it goes to basically the maximum charge speed that it can do without gaining any temperature.
Right.
So that would be AC systems running where there's no more temperature rise.
Yep.
And it seems that the cooling systems in the new car are optimized perfectly for 200 kilowatt charging.
Exactly.
So when you plug in and you're above 200 kilowatts of charging, roughly, you are eating into a buffer.
Yes.
And you get temperature rise at 300 plus kilowatts. Once you hit 55, 56, boom, it just holds it steady at 200 kilowatts. And that can happen really anywhere between 50 and 65% state of charge, depending on when you started, if you preconditioned properly.
Sure. Exactly. So that's where it becomes crucial to start your charging session at the low end of that window, so that you can eat into that buffer, like you're saying, temperature wise, and have the amount of energy you need right when everything gets too hot, so that you're done and you leave.
Yep. And so it seems to be optimized really for about 7, 8, 9% state of charge arrivals.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At the coldest possible end of that window, which is around 70, 72 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
And then you can, and I don't know what that is in Celsius, because maybe 30-ish, 35 degrees Celsius. I'll insert that here. And essentially, by the time you reach where the cells can no longer charge at over 300 kilowatts, it is right at the exact point when the temperatures reach the maximum.
Yep.
And so you really want everything to just hold as deep as you can in the pack.
Yep.
Then you unplug and go to the next.
Exactly. Yeah, and they're so on the I-90 surge, I want to say there was only one charging stop where we got into that window where it was too hot and things trail down to near that 200 kilowatt range.
Yeah, and I think it happened early on because you guys were stretching the range of the car.
Yep.
And you did not allow the extra energy to cool the battery pack down.
Yep, exactly. So the one thing that takes a little bit of that nerd knowledge to optimize this car is to know which setting to put it in and what that does to help you. And so to run it in range mode means the front radiator flaps close, and it basically shuts off any additional power usage to cool the battery. And so yeah, so then things are getting a little hotter, but you're more efficient. But as soon as as you get closer to a charging stop, you want to start bringing those temperatures down. So that means go Sport Plus. So that goes maximum cooling, which is going to help you when you get to the charging station like we just explained, but then obviously uses some energy.
Yeah, but it allows you to say, okay, do I have an extra 3-4% battery to burn in cooling?
Yep.
And if you do, rip it in Sport Plus and go. Now, you can drive a Taycan. It's a bit like an iPhone. You can use an iPhone just to call people. Yep. You can drive this in normal mode and it will do everything in the background. And it does a pretty okay job of choosing your charging stations and preconditioning on the way. But we're not like that. We like to optimize it. And what's cool is this is one of the very few electric cars that does let you completely optimize thermals and everything. So like Drew was saying, going range mode, keeping the heat in the battery, which actually is great when we were going through those colder nights because it has a heat pump, it has heat scavenging. Absolutely. It can pull that warm air out of the battery. And so you weren't unnecessarily cooling. And then right at the last moment, rip Sport Plus. Get it right into the perfect temperature with Porsche Charging Planner. The car will precondition based off of arrival temperature and expected charging power. It's really a great algorithm in there. And then gives you the best freaking charging session out of any electric car sold in our market.
Yeah, and I love the gauges. You know, you have this nice big temperature gauge, you know, right in front of you on the display. You know exactly what you're looking at. It's very clear, and the charge power gauge as well, very easy to read and understand. And yeah, it's just all about optimizing it for road tripping.
Yeah, and you know, to the charging power gauge, we should probably touch on that for a minute. It will tell you the maximum output of the charging station, and it will tell you what it's requesting. And usually you want those two to be matched up so that the car is getting everything it's looking for. And if you're on a shared charger or on a charging station that might have an issue and is derated, the car will tell you, it says, hey, charging station.
It's not me.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And it can allow you to like move stalls if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think we needed to do that on the I-90 Surge, which was the first time ever. And what was part of what made me somewhat receptive to doing the Cannonball after the I-90 Surge was just about zero issues on the EA and Pilot Flying J networks.
Yeah, the charging networks massively have improved over the last 6 months even.
Absolutely.
And that really gave us the confidence to say, because we weren't really going to do the Cannonball. At the end of the Surge, I mean, I had 30 people come in that I was like worried. I was happy we didn't crash any cars. Everyone was safe. It was all good. You know, I was burnt out. You guys were burnt out. And we're like, let's just go home. And then it was like let's just go home, but drive to LA first.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So you won the Surge. That's the big thing. We were going to choose whatever car won the Surge. And I think between us, we kind of knew the Taycan would be the best road tripper going into this. However, I didn't know by how much, how next generation this car is in terms of road tripping time. I mean, it was hours ahead of the next car, which props to the next car, which was the cheapest car there.
I mean, that is still kind of the biggest shocker.
Yeah, Model 3 long range.
Just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, smoked everything. Because what's interesting is normally our 10% challenges are pretty representative of that test and how it would go. The Ioniq 6 technically is superior to the Model 3.
Okay.
But the locations of the superchargers to the highway and the efficiency of Model 3 and...
That's what made the difference.
That made the difference. Because they were pretty close.
Yep.
And Lucid should have been right in there as well. I mean, Model 3, Lucid, Ioniq 6, they were switching places the whole time.
Yeah.
But this was hours ahead of all of that. I mean, you didn't even think about those guys after about halfway.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I'm not sure how much your dad videoed at the last charging stop that we saw each other, but he was distraught. He just he was looking at what the Taycan was doing and looking at what the Lucid was doing, and he was not a happy camper.
So clearly we knew if there was ever a car to set a Cannonball record, an electric Cannonball record, this is the one to do it.
This is 100%. Yeah.
So after the Surge, we went to Tijmen's parents, which is sort of our, what we always do before, at least
tradition now.
Tradition. We eat pasta
Yep.
We do the things.
Yeah.
It's great. We prepped the car. I had it detailed and cleaned. And so we should have Tijmen on to come talk about the Cannonball portion. And so now everyone knows everything about the car. So welcome, Tijmen.
Welcome, Tijmen.
Hello and welcome.
Hello and welcome to a very boring video. By the way, I don't think we mentioned it, but our Cannonball video is live at the time of this recording, so you can watch it all.
Hope you have, 19 hours to kill?
Tijmen's already edited it. It's
about 3.5 hours.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Easy.
No big deal.
No big deal. And it's one episode.
Yeah, just one. Very long one.
Tijmen, we convinced you to come again on a Cannonball.
Yep.
Were you feeling it the whole time?
When I got home to my parents' house, I was like, I just want to go home. I was exhausted. I was getting a little sick. And I was just like, the Acura I was in was not very comfortable, and I knew this wasn't very comfortable. So I was really dreading the 3,000 miles across the country again.
Yeah, I mean, we had all just come off of a cross-country trip where we were speed limited and on the longest stretch, so it really felt like a long drive. That I-90 surge over 3,000 miles where you can't speed did take a long time.
Yeah, that was the hardest part, was the no speeding.
Absolutely. I mean, you're just sitting there, just dragging your feet everywhere. So we went to your house. We actually took an extra day of rest. When we decided to do this, we said, okay, let's not just get in the car and go. Let's take a rest day, catch up on work. So we did all that. And
most responsible thing we did that week.
Yep. Then we said, let's go to Red Ball Garage. And we left Red Ball Garage, or at least attempted to leave, at a very unusual time.
Yes.
Right. We left midday compared to midnight, which was the first time we've ever done that. And it seemed to work out in our favor. The beginning was a little hard to get through because there was so much traffic in New York, and then into Pennsylvania there was construction traffic with a bunch of semis, and we were like, did we screw ourselves?
Yeah, so let's talk about, Drew, maybe you can explain why we decided to leave New York midday.
Exactly. So basically it's all about the end, and what we've experienced, to go back to our previous couple Cannonballs.
Yeah, especially the Lucid attempt.
Especially the Lucid attempt, where once you get into LA or California vicinity, you're at the risk of traffic increasing pretty heavily, and that includes at the charging stations. So yeah, in our Lucid attempt, we were waiting for almost an hour or something like that.
Yes.
Just for a spot to open up.
We still wouldn't have broken the record that
Sure.
Ryan had done and Josh in the Model S, but we could have broken our previous Taycan record if that station wasn't clogged in the Lucid run.
So we wanted to avoid that situation, and instead of arriving in the sort of the middle of the day, we wanted to arrive in the middle of the night. And so that meant also flipping our start time schedule to noon. What was it?
Yeah,
Right
1:05.
1:05. And
It was supposed to be noon, but then we went shopping, had to go get binoculars. We filmed a video at the Gravity Charging Hub.
Yep.
And so all of that happened.
Yep. And got this thing juiced up to 100. And so it's when you look at the full plan and schedule, we're hitting certain parts of the country at certain times, and so it's the whole strategy of, you need to sacrifice some time somewhere to gain time somewhere else. And so there you go, hence the leave time. But like Tijmen was starting to say, I mean, it was pretty brutal the first several hundred miles of the trip.
It was just, under the speed limit, following trucks. We were like, if it gets really bad, we're just gonna, we figured we have to go through Denver anyway.
Right.
If we aren't gonna make the record, we'll just go home.
Yep, right.
So
just turn right.
Then things started to improve. That was really a rough start. I don't think there was a way around it. Because then it all started to make sense. We hit Chicago area, not during rush hour.
Yep.
We got through Omaha just as they were waking up.
Yeah.
We got through Denver midday, but there was no real traffic, which was great. And then really we just boogied the whole way through until Vegas, which we hit the tail end of traffic for just 20, 30 minutes.
Sure.
And then it was smooth sailing in. So I really liked our leave time.
It's kind of wild. I'm just thinking back to how much actually traffic and, complete stoppages. I mean, we were, could have just gone into park and walked around a little bit at times right on the highway with traffic, or construction issues. So yeah, all more of a testament to the end result, because it was not smooth.
No, definitely not an easy run, but we had broken the record. We haven't announced the time.
Yeah.
Tijmen, why don't you say the time? Because your name is literally Tijmen.
It was 39 hours and 29 minutes.
Yes.
39 minutes.
29. No, 29. 39, 29.
Yeah, so we did it. We did it.
And so let's talk about that run going through the cities, and we'll touch on the traffic situations. The first real leg was getting through Pennsylvania, choosing that first charging stop. And during our initial planning, which we really didn't have a plan for this drive, the Lucid drive, we had every stop. We knew exactly what we were going to do. We had a Polestar 1 reserving charging stations. This was kind of a last minute wing it type of thing. I packed a radar detector that I found. We didn't have even the cables for it. It was just a very not well sorted in terms of planning, but I think it worked out well, because every time we've done the planning process, we're like, oh, we're worried about this. Let's, start overthinking about that. And this was just like, get in the car and go.
Right.
And just see what happens. And we've done this drive so many times now. We know all the charging stations. We had done the southern route in the Lucid and said we will never do that again. Just too many police, too much issues, and slow, and I don't know. It's a weird route. The northern route is the route to do it. It's a little bit, I'm trying to think it's a little bit longer. It's like 20 miles, 30 miles longer.
Yeah, not a huge amount, but yeah, a little longer distance.
But it's the one Google Maps actually recommends, and it's a much smoother route. So we blasted out of New York. We went through the night. We actually were able to stretch it past what we thought would have been the first stop because of that traffic. The car was so efficient. So we used the efficiency and went all the way until we got to our first stop. And then we started getting into the groove. The car charged really well. You'll see it all in the video, but it's just like, after thousands of miles of being thrashed across the country, and here again, DC charging over and over, it never derated once. It never gave a fault. It never felt stressed through the whole thing.
BMS was just spot on, the most spot on I've ever seen of any EV.
That was the craziest thing. Most cars, if you're not an EV nerd, will have what's called BMS sway. And BMS sway is when it kind of loses a little bit of calibration on what's in the battery. After driving this Seattle to Boston and then New York to LA, only DC charging, and never really giving the car a rest, we arrived into Portofino after getting the record at 3% state of charge. I shut the car off, we went to bed, we woke up in the morning and turned it on, and it was at 3% state of charge, which is like, to a lot of people, duh, but that is insane. Almost no other electric car can do that.
Yeah, just crazy.
So, Tijmen, tell us about, what the heck you experienced on the drive. I mean, we went through Pennsylvania, we went through states.
We had Pennsylvania traffic, that was pretty rough. And then we got out of it, and we really didn't see much traffic until we got to Denver. We saw a lot of semis, more than when we did Taycan and Lucid Run, but those were also still kind of in COVID times. And it really showed with this run that we're kind of back to normal. So many more trucks, so much more traffic in general. And
yeah, then the roads were packed.
And then we hit Denver, and it was a little traffic getting into the charger, but then after we hit Floyd Hill.
That was the one full charging station. And thankfully we had the colleagues and friends actually block a charging spot for us. And I didn't fully realize it when we pulled in, but we kind of apologized afterwards. But they blocked a spot. We kind of skipped a couple people waiting in line to plug in, which was not our intention. Our intention with this was to go with everything, but it worked out well.
Wasn't the first idea to skip that charger too?
Nope.
Oh, oops.
Yep. I think we were going to go there. We were going to get snacks. Alice made us some food, and I don't know what the heck it was, but it was great. And that was very welcome because we had been eating like crap. And she got us a bunch more guacamole than I've ever seen in my life. And no spoons or forks to eat it with.
Yeah, that was a little rushed at the end there, but she made it.
Oh yeah.
Unlike Alyssa. Yeah.
Right, Alyssa did not make it. I think we also made it in quicker time than we expected.
Right.
Because we
boogied. The issue. Yeah.
And actually, just before that run, you'll see in the video too, our buddy Danny, who's transporting cars back from the I-90 surge, we ran into him in the middle of Nebraska.
Right.
And so we called him and he ran ahead and did some spotting for us for, I don't know, 150 miles or something like that, which worked out well. So yeah, the big traffic issue, if we had to choose one, would be the Denver
Floyd Hill traffic.
Like I-70 was stopped and closed.
Yeah, we got lucky that it was towards the end of construction day, and they're doing a whole I-70 remap basically, and making the bottom turn less dangerous, and they're destroying a hill. So they're doing all of that work, and they just stop traffic randomly. Every 30 to 45 minutes, they'll stop traffic. And
and hold everyone for about 30 minutes.
Yeah, so we got lucky that either they just let everybody go or they were just finishing up for the day. But we took an exit and then actually came to a stop and didn't move at all. So then Drew turned us around and we got back on the highway, and we were rolling at least.
Yeah, that wasn't the right decision, but it was also like good to try. But also when you know you're wrong, just rip that Band-Aid off. Abort. So
we didn't really lose that much time when we took the off ramp. We came back to the cars we were driving with before the traffic, so that worked out fine. It was just a pain seeing just us sitting there.
The whole Rocky Mountain section, the whole Colorado Rocky Mountain section really was the worst part of the trip, which is, unusual because this is home for us. You would think we would know how to get through there. But not only was there traffic, by the time we got to Glenwood, we got a charging session, but it was really a problem. When we ran into this a few times where Electrify America's new charging stations are shared power between them. And this car needs dedicated high power to be showcased.
Yep.
And there's a lot of networks like the Mercedes charging network that are saying, look, we're putting in 400 kilowatt chargers. We're doing everything big, big, big. And EA does 350 or 360 kilowatt cabinets that split. And what was so weird about, not only did we just get stuck in traffic going through the mountains, we got to a charger and there were 3 Ioniq 6s there.
Exact same specs too.
It looked like an event or something, but they all didn't know each other.
No.
And they all, I don't know what it is about Hyundai drivers, but it's all, and this is a generalization and not always true, but they're all kind of old and they always just stand outside their car smoking while it charges.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a stereotype.
Yeah. So like ID4 owners charge to 100% all the time. Hyundai drivers are just, they got their free 30 minutes of charging and they want to burn it.
That's pretty funny.
But that's exactly what was happening there. All 3 of those Ioniq 6 owners were, I think, local drivers perhaps that were just there to get their energy. There's honestly nothing wrong with that, but we were in a rush and we're like, let's go. So we did have an open space, but we had to share power. And not only did we have to share power, Drew was on a mission.
Yeah, you mentioned our shopping spree ahead of the leave from New York City, but we didn't have an extra battery for our very handy binoculars, and the battery died, and so we needed to get another battery
for the stabilization.
For the stabilization aspect. I mean, yeah, it's already tough to not throw up even with the stabilization, but without it, it's gonna be a mess.
Yeah, it's almost hard to see. Those were great binoculars that we had.
They're awesome. But yeah, need a battery. So for some reason was one of we got it in the back situations, and so it just took a lot longer. But I knew it was happening, and so I needed to get it done because we weren't going to have another opportunity. And if we, not having the binoculars could be really bad.
Could be the end of the trip.
Yeah.
Because with the binoculars, you can just see so far ahead when you're at the top of hills. It gives you the confidence to keep the speed on the straightaways. Not that we did anything crazy. I mean, I think actually this drive, our driving was tamer than any other Cannonball we had done together.
Not entirely sure that.
I'm just saying this. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, nothing to worry about. Nothing unsafe.
But the deep charge there meant, and we knew we had a goal to meet. Our goal wasn't to break the record. Our goal was to break 40 hours.
Yes.
And it looked pretty bad at that moment. It looked like, okay, we kind of felt confident, assuming no major traffic, we could break the record. That's not the point of this for us. We don't need to break the record just to say we have the record. The whole point of this is to prove what electric cars can do and showcase the technology, and getting it into the 30s was the most important thing. And so by that deep charge and with a desert ahead of us, we were able to really put some speed on through the second, that sort of from there onwards, just keep the average speed up, rip into the most notorious charging station for us on our trips, which is Green River, Utah, which really screwed us in the race to Vegas. But that was a great charge.
Yeah. Best charge ever at
Yeah.
Green River?
Yep.
Yeah. And just on time.
And when we had that and we had the wide open desert, we were like, okay, this we can boogie.
It's on. Yeah.
So then we, put on speed hardcore all the way into Vegas where allegedly. And then Tijmen, what happened when we got into Vegas?
We hit traffic.
Stopped traffic.
Yeah, and Drew was doing a little lane dance for a little bit, and then we just went back into the express lane, and that was really just 10, 15 minutes or 5 minutes of stopped, and then 10 minutes of dense traffic, and then we were golden after that.
We knew we were on the cusp of like a 41 time, maybe high 40 hours. 40, 30 kind of was what we were thinking. And we were like, oh, the traffic, we don't know. When you're not moving, you just go, how long is it going to take until we start moving?
Right.
But we got on speed. We had one last charging stop in Baker. And then we had a monster charging session there. And then we boogied into LA. And we found some people on that last stretch that were absolutely hauling ass.
Yeah.
Remember that RAV4 that was just pegged?
Right. It's always the random cars you wouldn't expect that just come out of nowhere, and then they just push the air out of the way for you at the speeds that we want to go for like a while.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's unbelievable because, of course, the faster you drive, the more air resistance you have. So the bigger the benefit you have by drafting someone. Yeah. And we found people that were not really annoyed by me being 1 inch off their bumper doing big speeds and then waved when we left. Yeah. It's like, who sent these people? Oh. But shout out to that RAV4. I don't think it would have been possible without them. We would not have made it in because we made it at 3% state of charge.
Exactly.
They saved us at least 12% state of charge.
Yeah, we would have had to back off speed so much, to then be out of that draft and then, reduce your speed more. That probably would have killed the 40-hour thing for sure.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they definitely saved us that half hour or more. And then we came into the final sort of stretch where we had, I think, really the only route-based confusion of the whole trip.
Yep.
Yeah, there was some, miscommunication or disagreement between what the GPS was saying was best and our buddies were saying.
Yes.
So, then I forget what decision we went with.
I can't remember how it worked out, but we took one turn and then the navigation recalculated and it was like the same exact arrival time. And we were like, oh, hell yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, well, I was managing GPS. It's edited out of the video. But
is it really? You should put it in. It's great.
I was managing GPS and I clearly said, oh, go left. And Cal's like, no, I'm going right. And he's like, I know the way. And I wasn't paying attention to the time. But then I was like, dude, we're supposed to go the other way because I don't know LA that well. And he, I guess, knew it better than I did. And it lucked out to where it added maybe a minute. But other than that, it was fine.
I just remember full ABS braking, going, I don't know which way to go, and aiming straight for one of those barriers. I was like, we're all half asleep. Which way do we turn? And so anyway, we made a right. I don't know if that was the right or wrong decision, but it worked.
It worked out.
And at the end, the time was really kind of a cool number, 39:29. Sounds good. It's got a good ring.
2 minutes off of your guess from the beginning.
Oh yeah, I don't even know that.
Yeah. You randomly said something about 39:27.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
maybe if we went left.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And there we go. So, sort of summary final thoughts on the whole experience. Now we've done, I don't know, at least 6,000 miles of competition driving, I would say, in this car, and another 3,000 or 4,000 just testing and doing other stuff. How do we feel about the second generation Taycan in comparison to the first generation? First generation Taycans are kind of a great value right now.
Oh yeah.
So what are we recommending?
Yeah, first generation is still such an incredible car, but wow, the leap that they've taken is to not even completely start with a whole new car. especially is really impressive. I mean, this is just, please, every other automaker, take note of what happened here, because fast charging is the way.
Absolutely. Don't put bigger batteries in. No. I wouldn't even spend a bunch of money focusing on efficiency. Just make it charge like a monster.
Yeah. I mean, especially if it starts to look so much uglier, like there should be just a limit to how ugly you can go, for efficiency. So yeah. And then beyond that, I would just, spec this car to have the bench rear seat.
Oh yeah, actually, let's show everyone that really quick. We should talk about the space and size in here.
A demonstration of
just Tijmen, hop in there. Yeah, so Taycan is basically the same footprint as our Lucid Air test car, or any Lucid Air, I should say.
Exactly. And so the exterior dimensions are the same.
Yes,
but there is
half the space.
Half the space.
So you're pretty tight in there. And the main issue that we're talking about is when we tried to rest in the car, that hump. And so standard, this is a 4-seater car, and it's like a couple $100 option to get a 5-seater version. Get the 5-seat.
Yes, 100%. So now try to lay down. Just show the viewers just how just whichever way you want to. Sure, that's one option.
We had the idea of maybe we should put the seats down and then lay flat, but then no one would be buckled, and that could be dangerous.
Yeah, and probably the best move is just lean have the rest person in the passenger front seat, lean that back. But then that makes it awkward for seeing, because you need your spotter.
Worked pretty well from the back.
Yeah.
Not as good as the front, because the front you can put a pillow on. And Tijmen, maybe you can show everyone how we did with the binoculars, because that also was pretty cool.
I saw him in the door there.
This one has the base seating package, by the way. Look at that nice Nissan Leaf. But those binoculars, that is the make or break. Like if you want to drive fast with your buddies, don't buy a radar detector, get binoculars.
Oh, binoculars ahead of radar all day long. Yeah.
You can just see forever.
You can see forever. And then, as the driver, you're kind of blind and just, taking your instructions from the spotter, because when you're on those goggles, you're like, oh no, that's no big deal. You're like, are you sure? You're like, it's a trash can. Relax.
Yep. I mean, it's ramp checks and binoculars and just
vehicle detail checks.
Oh yeah, if you're coming up on one and you're like, okay, does it have the keyhole like a police interceptor Explorer would have?
Yeah. Just game changing.
That was awesome. And again, not like we were doing anything stupid behind the wheel. It's all safe. There's never been a major safety related incident in a Cannonball.
Wow. Knock on wood somewhere that stays.
Yep. Okay, so that's the car could use some more interior space, but you can get a Cross Turismo, less efficient.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit odd, and Calvin mentioned this, where Taycan versus Lucid, the top specs now, the Lucid is the faster car.
Absolutely.
And the Taycan is the better road tripper.
So you would think the Lucid Air would be the mega efficient road trip machine. Doesn't even come close to this car.
Right.
Not even, and maybe on a short trip where you're maybe doing 500, 800 miles. Yeah. Anything beyond 800 miles, this car is just going to walk it.
Yeah.
And in a
you
performance
just need to put the corresponding seats in the vehicle.
Yep.
Because you're going to be in it for a long time.
and Edmunds U-Drag, and I think Car and Driver Lightning Lap and other things, the Lucid is faster.
Right.
It has stickier tires, I think better powertrain than the Turbo GT. Turbo GT is the quickest accelerating car and Driver's ever tested.
Okay.
So it's actually faster in a straight line than Sapphire, but then like maybe down on something or other, I don't know.
Interesting. So it's the corners.
But still, Turbo GT, it's not like it's not sporty. I did Nürburgring laps in the Weissach pack, and I was like scared.
Yeah.
That's a serious car.
No, for sure. Right.
But yeah, I mean, so you're right, Drew. The Lucid has got the performance, it's got the range, but it doesn't have the road trip cohesiveness. The software, the temperature management, the the tools that you need as a driver to optimize the car for road tripping.
Right.
which are almost as important as like a track mode in a car, is like a road trip mode.
Absolutely. I mean, with EVs, especially, you know, and all this concern around range anxiety and stuff like that, like, so make it just as clear to understand as possible. And yeah, Taycan for the win there.
So congratulations to all three of us on breaking the record. Under 40 hours coast to coast in an electric car, far surpassing Google Maps. No one can say you can't road trip an electric car. I think we've proven that clearly with this one. And, you know, if you want a less expensive car and you want to go for a first generation Taycan, you're still going to have a mega road tripper. But it is amazing to see the difference. If we just talk about on a final note, the last thing I think we should bring up, our first Taycan Cannonball versus this Taycan Cannonball.
Yep.
A 6-hour difference?
40, yes.
That is a
difference.
Massive difference for just a facelift of a car.
Sorry,
now, infrastructure.
5-hour difference.
5-hour difference?
Yeah.
What did we do in that one?
44.25.
Oh, okay. 5-hour difference.
5 hours.
Okay. Sorry, I thought it was 45, but that was the Model 3 run I had done
There
earlier.
you go.
So 44.25 versus 39.29.
Yep. And 42 from our buddies. Yep.
Yeah, and 42 was the record from the Model S from Josh and Ryan, which was an incredible time, by the way,
Sure.
in the Model S.
Oh, absolutely.
And what else do we say? Why is it so much better than the previous gen Taycan? Also, infrastructure was better now than it was when we first ran the Taycan.
Think that's good news. Yep. That's great for everyone.
By the way, if people are wondering, we did not use any Tesla charging stations because this car is an 800 volt rough system architecture versus Tesla, which is not supporting it. At the moment, we only get about 135 kilowatts at a supercharger with this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not great.
Yep. Nope.
So we did all EA actually.
100% EA. And yeah, not the case on the I-90 Surge where we had a load of those Pilot Flying J's, which are awesome, but those just weren't available or the right choice. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds great, doesn't it? Tijmen, final thoughts? You've driven this car across the country and broken the record?
Yeah, I mean, comfort-wise, it sucks. It's great.
So, quantify that for a minute, because I think the suspension's smooth.
Yeah, suspension's great. The seats.
Yeah.
We needed massaging seats, really, and it would have made it a lot better.
And you can spec massaging seats
Right.
on this. The 14 ways are the comfort seats. We just did not have that spec'd.
Yeah, I was just blown away with the consistency of the car and the charging and how they communicated with one another, and that we tried maybe once or twice to switch chargers, and it made no difference. And that really was a big game changer from the Lucid run and the Taycan run beforehand, where we changed and it was better. And I mean, it charges great.
Yeah, it's a charging machine, and on road trips, that's what you want. I mean, I think our style of road tripping lends itself to charging over range, but you always want both, of course. So, Drew, your final thoughts now, driving it across the country twice, breaking the record. I think we always say it's going to be the last one, but I really think this is our last one.
Yeah, it feels like a nice finale. You know, there's no big milestone until sub 30.
Right.
And I mean, what does that look like? I have no interest in trying that.
No.
So first into the 30s feels great. You know, obviously it's a great, you know, just representation of where we are today, and things are going to move on. There's going to be a better car in the future, and somebody will beat that record eventually.
Can't wait for it. Hope it happens soon.
Wait. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
The sooner the better.
Yeah.
So, and I'm totally fine with that. And these experiences are just great. You know, spending, being, you know, locked in a car with you two guys for 2 days straight is not as bad as it may seem.
You know what didn't seem so bad actually was the New York to LA felt like a trip to the grocery store after the I-90 Surge.
Yeah, I mean, that actually kind of was the best plan in a lot of ways. Like, we're warmed up to this whole thing, but now we're set free. You know?
Yeah.
We can actually do what we want to do. And so yeah, it felt probably better than well, the Lucid was just so comfortable. But
Lucid was a great run, but also that was just us always confused on why we're charging here.
Exactly.
Why is this bugging out there?
Yeah.
Signet Surge. This was just consistent, repeatable, and ripped.
Yeah, just a machine.
So thank you guys for joining. That was really fun. Leave a comment in the comments section if you want Drew to make a Cannonball themed Martian wheel for, of course, Taycan. You'd have to make a Taycan size.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think, of course, if you're looking for wheels for your electric car, look up Martian Wheels. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
You just spent a whole time with us doing it. But I really think it'd be cool if Drew made like the ultimate aero wheel for an EV that wasn't ugly.
Sure. Oh yeah. Right. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's so many ugly aero wheels out there.
But I think like each design element needs to be for something related to Cannonball. So like a little bit of brake cooling. So when you're like slamming on brakes behind cars and stuff like
Cannonball
that.
isn't all efficiency. It's like there's like, you know, if you look at the route, there's like, there's a couple racetracks in there.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So I think it needs to be the Martian Wheels Cannonball edition.
That'd be cool.
And that's what I'm rooting for. Let us know if you would be interested in purchasing a set for your road trip on your electric car, and then maybe we can convince Drew to make them. With that said, thank you for watching another Out of Spec Reviews video. If you have not yet, watch our Out of Spec motoring road trip of both the i90 Surge series, which will take you a really long time to get through, and the Cannonball video, which I think is manageable. Our 3.5 hours is what most people tend to watch on our road trips. We just have a lot of data on that. So nice job, Tijmen, editing it into that time frame for us. And thanks to Porsche for letting us do all the crazy stuff with their car. No restrictions as usual. They toss the keys, say give it back when you're done.
Huge shout out to Porsche. They're just the best.
Yeah, they are the best. There's no way around it. I mean, they build the best freaking cars. They have the best employees that turn into friends of ours.
They're awesome.
And they just know how to build a car for what we're looking for.
Yep.
So thanks to everyone, and we'll see you on another one again soon. Bye-bye.